back to what I was saying about my handy dandy script writing. I have never written a script before. Written a script before. Hold on. I personally don't know how to follow like a script. Usually when I see a script, I hear my sophomore English teacher in the very back of my brain saying a script is a guideline. She said a script is a guideline, and then she followed it up with you should know everything on that script. What I have here is a script. There's going to be moments or instances where I glance over to that like a bullet list, because I am not going to follow this word for word, even after writing it on my computer and then looking at it and then printing it off and then editing it on physical paper. Cringe. I don't know how I can go. Yeah, this is super funny. And if I said this word for word, I would be hilarious to, oh my gosh, I'm so cringe. If I ever cite this word for word, I will look like an absolute moron. With that being said, the other thing that I was going to bring up, I'm gonna kind of work in reverse order with these books. So far I've read, Goodreads lied to me and said that I've only read 11 books this year so far. I just kind of wanted to go over them with you because I have no clue what genre is my favorite. All I know is that if you sit me down and you tell me that I should read some I'ma read some. We're starting with the most recent books that I just finished, and then we're going back and starting at the beginning of this year. Did not want to read anything for the height of November. My cousin, she had suggested a book series, and I got quarter way through the second book of that series. I was so frustrated with the main character because she's a 19-year-old girl who makes stupid decisions, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try and read something else. And so one of my suggested that I use the Libby app, which is, like the library loan app, which was a lifesaver this year. Basically, for the entire month of November, all I did was barter back and forth with like one book that I really wanted to read, but never read. I just kept borrowing it digitally from the library. And then by the time that loan had lapsed, I'd be like, but I was gonna sit down and read it. I have no clue who I was lying to. I was not gonna sit down and read it. Also, I got sick towards the end of November, and I'm like still kind of recovering from that. I have a Victorian boy cough, and me saying that almost triggered a coughing fit, but I'm okay now. Starting with the most recent book that I just finished. I have Kindle Unlimited. Yes, sorry. I borrowed this one on Kindle Unlimited. It is the second novella in a series of novellas by Molly Doyle. It is called Melt for Us. It is the sequel. I say sequel, but it's actually a post sequel. So it's actually supposed to come after like the main book that she writes, because Scream for Us is the novella before the main book that she's written. It's out now. By the time that I had started this book, I did not realize that. She acknowledged me, big dummy over here, and she said that it was okay. In her author's note, she was like, it's okay if you read this and then go back and read like the original book. And I was like, bet. Now, I will show you some of the cringe that I made for Scream for Us, because that rocked my world. Honestly, I don't know what mental capacity I was in when I read that. All I know was that looking back at me, loving that novella, I was like, yeah, take me back to a simpler time. Melt for Us, it's set in Christmas and New Year's time. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so on theme, because right now, as I'm recording this, it's December. In Scream for Us, main character Quinn meets 3 masked men on Halloween night, and they're dressed up as Ghostface, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers. That's my Halloween harem, okay? If anybody knows me at my big ass adult age now, you know that Jason Voorhees is two things. Is that I used to fear this man, then I started to love this man, and now I've just kind of like circumvented my fear into like a weird form of obsession and attraction. We're not going to dive into that. I know that I would probably have to spend a lot of money in therapy for that. So they're like regular guys. Obviously, they're not like the actual killers, but they dress up like them. They're like total bad boys because they're all covered in tattoos, and they do some wild in the night of Halloween. I'll be so honest with you. The novellas, the way that Miss Doyle, and I love Molly Doyle. I love Molly Doyle for this. She commented on one of my TikToks and she thought that it was funny. The way that she writes them is very like, she was his queen and God help you if you harmed his queen. It's very like Joker Harley Quinn coded. Harley Quinn. Quinn is her name. Okay. Ghost keeps like reiterating like at the end of this night it's all over. Like at the end of this night it's all over. And she's like, oh my god, like okay, like let's make this night count. Then at the end of the novella, obviously she leaves, right? She leaves like the next morning, November 1st. She's leaving their apartment. The men aren't wearing masks anymore. These are actually real dudes. And they're all like, where are you going? She tries to get on with her life, and obviously the main guy, Ghost, hunts her down and he's like, you're staying with us. You're ours now, Quinn. Melt for Us takes place after all of those events have happened. We find out their names, which blew my mind for whatever reason. We find out their names. Damien is Ghostface, Jensen is Jason, and Micah is Michael Myers. This book pissed me off so much. Don't ask me why, like, because I read Scream for Us over a year ago. It was at least 2 years ago. So like the hype train for this is probably all gone. They're probably hyping like the actual book now. But I was sitting there reading this novella being like, cannot be serious. Quinn, the first person that she, in this novella, because obviously it's smut. The first one that she smucked out of her frupple, I guess that's what you call it, a frupple, is Micah. And don't ask me why that pissed me off so much. I know that all of these men are like super chill. Ours, like we're a frupple, of course. But the first person that she meets in Scream for Us is Damien, and the first person that she smucks in Scream for Us is Damien. And so, okay, so we're just subverting expectations. Very A24 of you. I respect it. It's very much like not a lot happens, but obviously everything happens in this novella. It's really just kind of like a shut your brain off type of thing and just read and enjoy the ride. Right? That's what it was supposed to be. Meanwhile, I, over here, was losing my mind because they arrive at the cabin on Christmas Eve, I say. The first thing that they do, like, Christmas Eve, should I say Christmas Eve? Christmas Eve, like, night is all only wearing Santa hats, and then they tie main character Quinn up with Christmas lights. Yes, like, so festive. Then they take those Santa hats off and then they put on their original Halloween mask. Yeah, got it. The main thing that I was focusing on in that scene was the fact that Damien doesn't know proper choking technique. This man is literally crushing windpipe when he should just be, just holding some arteries so she doesn't actually, die. I think directly after that, she brings up trauma, okay? She brings up trauma, and they immediately take that trauma and they're like, let's make a scene out of it. And the entire time, as they're making this active scene of it, I kept commenting, so trauma? You know trauma, right? Like, trauma. I didn't read any of the trigger warnings because I up my whole night. Why don't I? So that happens and it goes on for way too long. It made me very uncomfy to the point where I was like, this isn't even like hot anymore. Like, it's not hot anymore. If anything, I'm just very uncomfortable, okay? Basically, all you need to know from Christmas-ish time to, like, actual Christmas, all they do is just schmuck. There's not a lot of, like, big stuff that happens. All we know for, like, my mental tally is that Micah has actually gotten it in at least 3 separate times. And me, being a Damien and Jensen girly, I'm like, where's my men representation, okay? Micah, sure. Molly really likes Micah. Like, I don't know what she did in her head that she was like, Micah's the best. But me, I was like, Damien will actually kill for me, okay? I know that he will. He has done it before. He will do it again, okay? And that is true Ghostface fashion. And Jensen is built like a linebacker, okay? Because there's no way that they would let the scrawniest guy be Jason Voorhees. So that is my linebacker right there. Therefore, they deserve more representation, and I will not be taking this Micah is king, okay? We have a little tidbit scene where Micah and Jensen are also schmucking while Micah is schmucking Quinn. And she thinks that it's so hot, which, yeah, okay, but the Beast did it better. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But I know that for that, I wrote a note, and it should not be this funny. It says Jensen crouching over the couch. And this is later on in the day when Jensen starts taking it from Micah. Oh, look, a Jensen taking back shots. What kind of sick puppy are you?
Is this how you get your sick chicks?
You know. And what's even funnier is that in her acknowledgement, she brings up that if she's not watching Supernatural, and I knew you were a Jensen girly. You were a Jensen girly, and I know you're a Dean girly, okay? I'm sitting here and I'm like, where's my phone? Obviously, you know where your phone is. Thing is, you're staring at it. The book was okay. Probably the quickest read that I've ever had, aside from Scream for Us, right? It culminates with a little teaser being like, ooh, the boys are at it again. Freaking Micah is the last one to schmuck her in this novella. Don't piss me off. Rating these on Goodreads. I gave this 3 stars. So that was my review for Melt for Us. It was kind of cute. This entire video is just a self-report because the book that I read before Melt for Us literally finished like that afternoon before reading Melt for Us at midnight was The Beast, which is it's the follow-up book after A Worthy Opponent. If you know, I read A Worthy Opponent with Kiara and I put her through that kind of hell, and it was funny, but I really, really wanted to see what Miss Robert was going to do with the characters Beast, Gaetan, and Isabel, which is based off of the Disney Beauty and the Beast. So Isabel is Belle, Gaetan is Gaston, and Beast is Beast. This shit, I read it, I'm kind of glad that I read it as quickly as I did. What am I supposed to say, honestly? In this one, the premise is that Isabel Belmont, her father just passed away, spoiler alert, at the end of A Worthy Opponent, okay? Gaetan is living in the underworld, not with Beast, along with Beast, and they both dated Isabel for like a year to 2 years, like collectively they dated her, so they kind of like passed her back and forth. Isabel is a slut, long story short. She has to come back to the underworld to find Gaetan and Beast because the territory that her family owns in Carver City is under, not like a siege, but it's about to be under siege by Ursa, the Sea Witch, which is book number 5, and I refuse to read it. And they need, like, their generals back. They need their 2 best generals back, and that is Gaetan and Beast. She comes back, and she's like, hey, hey, boys. Hi. How you doing? So, like, I know that I broke both of your hearts, and I know that I f***ed up with our relationship really badly, but would you guys want to come back to the territory? And they're like, hell no. Why would we want to do that to ourselves? And then Beast, being the galaxy burning, all Beast does is galaxy brain through this entire novel, and I love him for it because we only get to see into his mind 5 out of the 36 chapters. Beast galaxy brains, and he's like, odd, what about a sex pact for 2 weeks? And here's the thing that I brought up to Tiara, is that Miss Katee Robert, she will definitely put a timeline, like a strict timeline, in book form, like on paper. The characters say it, so they obviously acknowledge that is there. And then it's like not even hours after they said, like, this is the timeline for it, they will be like, but that timeline. In A Worthy Opponent, me and Tara, did not understand what, like, the time frame was for the entire book, because I brought up the suggestion that all this shit could have been taking place in a week. I was like, Tinkerbell gets kicked out, she goes to Hook for help, they get married, they go on their honeymoon, a day later, she's already said that she's in love. This is 3 days in a row, okay? And then a day after that, she decides that she needs to flee the territory. So in this one, she does the same damn thing. And it is that Beast says, okay, we're gonna do the sex pact for 2 weeks. We're gonna show you, like, the darkest parts of us, the parts that we never showed you. Basically confessing that, hey, we were were only Prince Charmings because we thought that you needed to be treated like the princess that you are. Halfway through the book, they're like, okay, but she's like a dirty little slut. I'm surprised that's not the nickname that they decide to call her, because they call her Princess. Beast calls Isabel Princess, and then Gaetan calls Isabel Rose, and I was like, okay, but you didn't have to say that. So they come up with this sex pact, being like, dirty little slut, obviously. They immediately spring into action. A day later, they're all just hanging out in Gaetan's nice little loft apartment, you know, the underworld loft. Not really talking it out and not really like schmucking it out or anything like that. But Gaetan gets into a hissy fit. He gets all in his head, and Mr. Beast Galaxy Brain over here has already come up with the expert thought that, hey, we're gonna be in a throuple. He's not saying this to Isabel. 3,000 IQ, expanded brain over here. He's really just like articulating the steps to get to this throuple status. He's like, all right, he's already schmucked Gaetan like that same night, like the night before. Then after, he's like, what if we close this triangle for a little bit? He, you know, seals the deal with a little Gluck Gluck 9,000. If my parents walked in, make the matter of that story short, to not go through this whole review, they end up together, okay? It's been 4 days. It's been 4 days. Out of 2 weeks! They already decide, like, we belong together, to quote our queen, Mariah Carey. And I love just fucking torturing Tiara with the information that I get from these Katee Robert books, because I really sent her a screenshot of, like, one of the last few chapters of Mr. Galaxy Brain, where not Galaxy Brain, it was Gaetan's chapter, sorry, I take that back, where he's sitting in the front seat with Beast, who's driving, and Isabel's sitting in the back, and they're all just like, yay, we're like in the trials of like a throuple and stuff like that. And Beast immediately turns to Gaetan and he's like, oh dear lord, I don't know if I can say it. So it got deleted, but literally verbatim, Beast says to Gaetan, I love you and you're big. Gaetan Tybalt, like his last name is Tybalt, and I was like, y'all just gonna breeze over that? The entire sentence itself is wild. And I was like, can you imagine somebody giving a love confession like that? And the first thing that I said to Tiara was like, I love you and your wildly unkempt pussy. So the Beast broke my brain. Literally, I was like sitting there and I was like, maybe in the Beast they'll cover more of like this territory like issue and stuff like that. No, all I did was make it more confusing, because now Beast keeps mentioning Sabine Valley, which is an entirely different series, and I'm not gonna read that. And then towards the end, Ursula, who likes red instead of purple, is like, I need you guys to go to Olympus. Olympus? It turns out that Olympus is where Zeus and Triton reside, because Hercules he's in the second book of this series. Bro. So obviously, my review was 3 stars. I mean, they just keep flip-flopping all around. There was no need to keep score. Unlike with Melp for us, there was no need to keep score, because it's either Isabel, Gaetan, or it's Beast, because somebody's always involved in it. And somebody's always getting their rocks off. And it goes on and on and on until it fades out with a link to the Sea Witch. Because that's literally all that happened. I thought that they were actually going to have to go to war, okay? Thought they were actually going to have to, like, suit up and come up with war strategy, but I really should have thought more into that, because I know that Miss Katee Robert is nothing but a girl's girl. So she was like, but war's stupid. So we should just make this as easy as possible. And I, you know what? I salute you for that, Miss Katee Robert. That is the last time I'll be reading one of your books for a very long while, because I don't think that I could sit through another one. Tiara really wants me to read the last 2 of the Wicked Villain series, which is what that's from, because they both have sapphic energy in it. And I got my fill in this book because Aurora, who is a black woman in this one, and I was like, yes, diversity. Her and Isabel get it on. And I was like, all right, like, I don't really want to read about Ursa and Zuriel and Alaric because Eric is Disney domain. I don't want to have to read about more. I don't want to have to read about more. How about that? So that's the end on that. That's a series that I will not be picking up again. Thank you, Miss Katee Roberts, for your service. Now we're getting back into my script, okay? Is it like all shadowy? Oh, I'm not doing this again. You know what? This is just what we get, okay? If this is as good as my production value can get, then this is what we're getting. At the beginning of this year, I decided that, I want to see what the hype of Miss Colleen Hoover is all about. Thankfully, I didn't have to actually spend money on this book. It was literally given to me because my mother, she works with people and they were just giving away like a bunch of their library. So I was like, yes, give it to your book daughter. And for that, my mother is also a trooper. So I decided that I was going to read The Worst of Colleen's Worst. That's a lie. It's not The Worst of Colleen's Worst. The Worst of Colleen's Worst is Ugly Love. I started reading It Ends With Us, okay? And this was in January. I finished it like the first week of February because there was no way that I was going to drag that out any more than I was supposed to. I said that it was not worth the extra brain effort and it felt like it was I was watching a horror movie. It really felt like I was sitting there inside of the mind of the Jigsaw Man. But I was like, oh my god, like I'm watching an actual car crash in real time. The story is about Miss Lily Blossom Bloom, and she's an ex-numbers person, turns into a florist. She falls in love with brain surgeon with the name of Ryle Kincaid. At this time, at the beginning of this year, I was really into cyberpunk. And I do this super cute thing with my brain where I will associate a main character man to my latest obsession. It's mostly associating by like the first letter of that name. My brain decided to associate Mr. Ryle Kincaid, brain surgeon, with Officer River Ward from Cyberpunk 2077. And yes, he is amazing. And if this man approached me in a bar and asked to buy me a drink, I wouldn't have to worry about him putting something in it, okay? And then obviously I would have to make out with him in the back of the bar because duh. He's a beautiful man. That's it. Thank you for looking at my husband. Don't tell Jiraiya. I did have to immediately dissociate the visual of him from Ryle Kincaid because Ryle Kincaid is a monster. A monster in not the fun way either. Beast and Gaetan from The Beast, they were like, we're monsters. And even freaking Damien, Jensen, and Micah were like, we're not the good guys. And I'm like, of course you're not. Me when I love a morally gray man. Ryle Kincaid is an actual devil. When I think of Ryle Kincaid, like his name, I immediately think of Childish Gambino. I'm sorry, Donald Glover's comedy special where he's like, people please don't come down with Scalagon. Sorry, this person's a demon. I didn't know. Miss Colleen Hoover tried to make not like a Lifetime movie at all. She was like romantic comedy, and then it immediately turns into a Lifetime movie because Ryle Kincaid has anger issues and he has a thing with physical with his girlfriend, and then he likes to love bomb her, and then he likes to speed run his relationship, which why are we going so fast? Speedrun his relationship into marrying her. She ends up pregnant, and then the back half of the book is just her trying to run away from her abusive husband. Also, there's like a old love triangle in there from her high school boyfriend. That book made me tired, okay? That book made me so tired. Also, the fact that she references Ellen DeGeneres exclusively in this book, I gave it 1 star, and the reason that I remember Miss Colleen Hoover in the first place was that she wrote the Never Never series, and I previously blamed her for the way that the Never Never series ended because it was such a jumbled mess towards like the climax. It's only Colleen's fault. Not Miss Taryn Fisher, but apparently Miss Taryn Fisher is also not a good, she's a gaslight writer herself. Also, the book ends with a reference to Finding Nemo. In March, I was reading 2 books, Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood and I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy, which, saying that title in front of my mother, I got a shock from it because looking at her face, I was like, not obviously not you, but, Jennette has a very different feeling about her mom. I didn't have a lot that I wrote about both of these. I do know that I loved Love Hypothesis because it was a Raylo fan fiction that got turned into like an actual romance fiction, and I acknowledge my fan fiction girl. I am also a fan fiction writer. If you find any of my fan fiction online, no, it is not me, and do not bring it up in public. I gave it 4 stars, and I gave Jennette McCurdy's memoir 5 stars because she is a fantastic writer, and I hope that she writes again. Got back into my Gillian Flynn, loved Gone Girl, loved the book, loved the movie. I was like, oh, I remember when they made the miniseries on HBO of Sharp Objects. Well, let me watch Sharp Objects. And that was a huge mistake because I wish that I had done it the opposite way around. In Sharp Objects, which is another great book, it's way more grody. How about I say that? Gritty girl murder, which love, but it's based in a small town, a small hometown, should I say. I love when books are based in like the small town gossip, like going back. It's not nostalgic. It is comforting in a way, but it also makes you feel gross inside. Like you go back to any hometown at any moment in time, you're going to be like, first off, I came from this. And secondly, nothing has changed. So that's what I felt when I was listening to this. I will say a lot of it was like really well written, and it was also like repulsive and kind of like made me a little squirmy inside. There is like way too much talk in this book about girl sexuality and like focusing on teenage girls. They're underage. They're not 18, but teenage girl sexuality and that kind of stuff. Ugh. Oh, it just makes you feel so slimy. The way that she just keeps like honing in and in on it. There's a part, and I won't get into like gritty detail about it because the entire Sharp Objects book is grit. There's a part where Camille Preaker, who is our main character, she's the journalist that goes back to a hometown. She's helping detective with like these girl murders. They're sitting in a bar. He's like going through all of the gossip that he's heard in this small town, being like, yeah, and it's not right that this thing happened to one girl and stuff like that. And in Camille Preaker's twisty little brain, she's like, okay, but it wasn't that bad. She literally defends this actual SVU scene that happened to her, being like, it was my first time. There's nothing wrong with that. Bam! I don't think that I can even repeat what it is because yeah. I giggle because I'm nervous. That one, I gave it 4 stars. And then directly after that, I read the 4th installment of the You series with Mr. Joe Goldberg by Caroline Kepnes. It is For You and Only You. For You and Only You is the 4th installment of the Joe Goldberg saga. He's moved to Boston, Massachusetts to be in a writing program. Just like every other time, he has found himself a new love interest. And at the end of the 3rd book, not spoiling anything, his love interest in that one doesn't work out. He moves to Florida because he was originally in the Seattle, Washington area. He moves to Florida. He opens a bar down there, and he stays down there for a couple months. Well, Caroline Kepnes said, F that. And so he moves to Boston. He sold the bar, and now he's like, I'm in my writing era, because of course I am. That is the number one thing that he's doing in this. This is probably the only one that I will exclusively only read in audiobook form. Santino Fontana is what I can only imagine as the voice of Joe Goldberg, okay? Penn Badgley does a fantastic job as like the physical body of Joe, but his voice is kind of like all la 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 la. It sounds like he's trying to do a teenage Vin Diesel impersonation. Santino Fontana is already a marksman with his voice because he is the speaking role of Hans from Frozen. He is the singing voice of Hans from Frozen. He is a Broadway girly, and he was in My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend as Greg, and that was fantastic, and I miss him every single day. Also, that series is amazing. If you haven't watched My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, you need to go watch it right now, if you like musicals. But even with Santino Fontana on this track, it was exhausting, is the only word that I can think of. It was such a drag, because all it does is play into the same Mr. Joe Goldberg acts. Act 1, falls for girl. Act 2, goes out of his way to approach girl. Act 3, he's got the girl, but now he has to keep the girl. And Act 4, he f***ed it up somehow, because he's always f***ing it up somehow. At some point, you would think that he would recognize that he's the problem, but obviously he doesn't, and he thinks that he's the anti-hero when he's exclusively a villain. But by the end of this 4th book, I was absolutely just exhausted. Santino Fontana couldn't even keep me interested to the end. I was like, this is it. I really had to close the eyes of Joe Goldberg, put 2 schmeckles on his eyes, and send him out on the river. Take a break. 2 stars. Okay, for August, I got into Good Omens by Mr. Terry Pratchett, and I'm gonna start over. So for August, I got into Good Omens, the accurate and... Hold on. For August, I got into Good Omens, nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter's. For August, I got into Good Omens, the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter Witch by Mr. Terry Pratchett, R.I.P., and Neil Gaiman. I sat down and I watched the TV show first. My Aro and my Barty Crouch were in it. I was going to love it. So I sat down, rewatched it for the first time. Actually loved the story. An angel named Aziraphale, not a demon. He's described as like an angel who sauntered vaguely downward, growling. They're basically best friends, and you know, one's like super good and stuff and the other one's supposed to be super evil, and they are just so catty. Like, there's not a moment in that show where they weren't going back and forth with their little quips. So I decided to give the book itself a try. I will be so honest with you, could not keep me. It was another audiobook, okay? But this one was off of Libby. The actual text, they're like quarterback novels, and they're thick. They're thicker than the Bible. It was chock full of a bunch of streams of consciousness. So I sat down, tried to read the book, could not do it. I will physically force myself to listen to this audiobook. I had to put that on 3 times speed. I didn't feel like there was any necessary information that was milked out of these extensive paragraphs. Following that struggle bus is an even longer struggle bus, okay? Because directly after, I fell into this really deep repulsion of love, sexuality, and don't ask me why. The next book that I decided to read was Priest by Sierra Simone. I am so tired of book talk. I have a feeling that I'm going to clip what I actually just said and put it on TikTok. It's the fact that every single time that Book Talk has suggested a book to me, it has somehow ruined a fundamental part of my brain. Book Talk really thought that I was on my romance era. I had seen a lot of TikToks talking about Priest. There's a scene in it with anointing oil, and I was like, okay, like, sick. We're bringing in new props. Let's see what happens. I wish I had never ever heard that scene, because I was in audiobook form. I wish I had never heard that scene, and I wish that I had known that most of this book was going to be about that. I would have literally just skipped it. My dumbass saw that it was proposed as a love story. There was not a single bit of love in this. There's this thing that books. There's a thing that certain authors like to portray in smut, is that lust is equal to love. You're meshing these feelings of physical intimacy with your brain chemistry, which, like, that is really the Lulu person brain. Getting off of that little tangent, reading Priest was really, really hard. Priest is about Tyler Bell. He's a hot priest, got like the gym body and stuff, but he hides it underneath all of his cloak. And he meets this girl who's like new to the parish. Her name is Poppy. And Poppy is described as being super duper pale, long brown hair, and loving a red lip, which most people can pull off a red lip. Every single time that somebody mentions a red lip to me, I immediately think of this. It reminds me, you're a clown. Because that's all that I think of. She's like trying to start all over in this small town. And Tyler Bell immediately is like, I wish I wasn't married to God or the Holy Spirit. He's like, I haven't thought about sex. I am in this priesthood in order to save the past soul of my sister, and that is all I am here for. And then he sees one really, really hot woman, and he's like, a lot of this book me being so repulsed by the themes of it, the audio version of an SVU episode. It switches to Poppy's point of view, and I praise the narrators of these audiobooks. Okay, they had to spend like so much time sitting there reading, rereading. They had to go back and do certain edits. Poppy's voice actor, what is her name? Elena Wolf. Okay, you did a fantastic job. The demure kitten voice that Poppy has in this, it broke my brain. There was no way that I was going to sit down and not actively squirm hearing Jacob Morgan as Tyler Bell describing these heinous crimes towards a woman, and then Poppy turning around and being like, I love it. I was like, I'm so sorry to editing me. That was not fair to you at all. She gets the epilogue of this audiobook, and I was like, no, I am done. And I can't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore, okay? So that got 3 stars. And with that, we move on again. Coming back on this script after, writing it out and stuff like that, I just keep remembering that I am the prop. Directly after reading Priest, I read the physical book of I was gonna grab it. I'm not gonna grab it, okay? I'm lazy. I read Promises and Pomegranates by Sav R. Miller. My favorite story of Greek mythology is Hades and Persephone's love story. Out of all of the tragedies that is Greek mythology, this one actively made me angry because it's supposed to be loosely based on the retelling of Hades and Persephone, but what that means is that there's going to be Hades and Persephone references by the way of their names and the fact that one of the characters has a pomegranate tattoo. The man character, what is his name? Callum Anderson. Callum Anderson, his homestead is called the Asphodel, which is a reference to the underworld and the underworld adjacent. None of the characters have echoes of Persephone or Hades or Thanatos, Demeter, and Zeus. They're all their own original characters. It's exactly what they feel like. And I feel like the author would have done way better. Sometimes you need a gimmick, but I feel like the author would have done way better if they had just ran with the original characters that they wrote. They are still self-published. Callum refers to Elena, who is his forced marriage wife, as his little Persephone, and then Elena in her chapter, she calls Callum Hades incarnate, and this one, Callum Anderson, Hades incarnate, is Dr. Death. He is a actual doctor, and then he's a killer doctor. It always comes back to mob. You want something to get spicier, just add a mob to it. Elena is like the daughter of this mafia boss. They're blackmailed to get married. So when Elena, who's supposed to be this proposed beautiful virgin, when the sex tape of Elena and Callum comes out, they'll be like, but they were already married, so it's fine. That's what this entire book is that they're trying to find out who the blackmailer is. They're like, who's the blackmailer? And also, can Elena's parents get off my This is Callum speaking. Can Elena's parents get off my because I'm trying to stay with my beautiful wife, even though I kind of tricked her into this marriage. And then Elena's being like, I mean, I'm just kind of here. The first week she really fought Callum on this marriage, and then like the second week she's planting flowers and being like, I'm gonna spruce this place up. And then she's showing up, sans panties everywhere, because that's how you make spicy spicier, okay? You go sans panties. Sansies, she's loving being his little housewife, even though she is technically captive in the Asphodel. I gotta say, this is supposed to be the first book that Savar Miller put out. Reading this one did not make me interested to read the others. It was just something that I was waiting for something really big to happen, and the biggest thing that happens is that they start schmucking in an opera theater, and then she runs away. Okay, my drag, I guess. I gave it 3 stars because this was another book talk, and then I feel like there was another. So now I can come back to the Ravenhood series. It is by Miss Kate Stewart. It's about a girl going back to live with her father for an entire year so she can get her inheritance. And so she meets these 2 men, Dominic Toretto. I'm kidding. And Sean, bad boys. It's never mentioned that they're in a gang until like halfway through the first book, and they're part of the Ravenhood. They have like the raven tattoo on them. Mr. Sean is like the beautiful sunshine boy. Thinking about him as like the fan cast of him, I'm thinking of Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused, but without the mustache, right? And then Dominic, this is another self-report. When he's described, my immediate thought was Nathan Explosion from Metalocalypse. I don't think that I should have to explain myself to you. He's like the grumpy cloud. She's 19, they're 26, and I was like, that is a crime. It's not actually a crime because obviously she's an adult, but it feels like it should be a crime. If me, in my big ass age of 27, almost 28, because my birthday's coming up, thank you, decided to date a 19-year-old, I would hope that my friends and family would see that as a cry for help. I'm going through a quarter life crisis. I need to be committed yesterday because there is no way that I have the same interests as a 19-year-old. They haven't even started drinking yet. I am on my way towards alcoholism. The more that my brain really wants to like just I'm working myself into a frenzy. Victorian boy coded. Like a 19-year-old was born in 2006? 2004? My guy. Getting all of that out of the way, there's only one thing about her being 19 years old is that she hasn't gotten her inheritance yet from her estranged father. Nothing else about her being 19 years old adds to this story except for the fact that in the second book, the new introduced character is like, I don't little girls. And I was like, period, you're king for that. I just thought that it was so funny because the way that it's referenced in the first book is that Sean and Dominic have like these really cool muscle cars and they work on muscle cars all the time. And I was like, Fast and Furious. That was the only thing that I could think of. Dominic has hair. So this is like a prequel to Fast and Furious in an alternate reality where Dominic already knows Sean, but Sean is Brian. They're just two young guys being dudes. And they love cars and they love women and they love partying. That kind of got me through it. That kind of got me through this one. It's in the span of 3 months, 6 months, I think is the span of the first book. All of a sudden it's just over. And you're like, whoa, whoa, slow your roll there, buddy. What the just happened? That's the other thing about a 19-year-old is that she is so immature. She thinks that she's galaxy braining and that she's playing 6D chess and they're not even on the board. She's thinking that she's playing all of these like successful mind games and whatever, and they don't even bother opening the box. There's a part at the end of this first book where she meets the character for the second book, and she thinks that she's really gonna stick it to her men because they end up as a throuple for a short period of time and blah 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 blah, and they have big plans being like the Robin Hoods of this small town. She accidentally summons the third character from the second book, and she is topless. She is topless at the pool. She's got her little bikini bottoms, and then when she realizes that it is not the men that she thought that she was summoning with her little baiting call, she's like trying to like cover up and being like, whatever, like you don't even matter, like you're just loser is basically what she calls this grown-ass man. And that's when he's like, I don't little girls. He's French, okay? She's like, damn, where is my top? And she's trying to get through this man being like, but I love them. And he's like, I don't believe you. Why would I believe you? Anyways, I think, what did I do? I gave it 3 stars. Most of these authors are fantastic in their writing prowess, except for Public Enemy #1, Colleen Hoover. I love reading. I love reviewing books now. My Goodreads, I feel like I am the Roger Ebert of books right now, because my Goodreads reviews are just scathing for no reason at all, as if somebody's gonna sit there and be like, Like, I totally agree with you. I'm 12 books in. My original reading challenge was 20, so I really have 8 books left to go, and I'm already in the second week of December, so I have until like December 31st to read 8 books. So we're going to figure out how that's going to go. That's really all that I had to say about all of the books that I've read so far. The next book that I'm reading, The Absolute True Story of a Part-Time Indian by Alex Sherman. But other than that, I don't think that I'm going to do another review for all of the books that I've read in a year. This itself felt like such a long thing, and the script itself was kind of like ass. I don't think I had anything else to say. If you like this video and you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe. If you have a comment on anything that I read, if you think that I'm wrong about Miss Colleen Hoover, my worstie, let me know in the comments down below. And hopefully I'll be back here again doing something a little bit more entertaining than me just talking your ear off. Hopefully I was enough of a companion while you were doing your chores. You should really get on those. And I will see you in the next video probably. I don't know. Goodbye. If you say one word, we're fighting. Love you. It's just that I might start coughing in the middle of this, and I'm sorry. So. What the fuck did I just say? Anyway. Hey, excuse you. Okay. Jarvis! Stop!